Welcome tonight. We have a pretty awesome show. We got our guest Al Bertolone with us. Al, welcome.
Thank you. Good to be here.
We were highly anticipated bringing you on tonight because we think highly of you. We're going to stay on a high tonight because it's going to be all good stuff we're talking about. And we got some relevant, some important topics. I think tonight, anytime we have a conversation and we kind of talk about what you do and what you've done, I think there's a lot of learning involved. Just because I think just the way you coach, it's more than just a sport, and it's kind of what we're trying to bring to this show in general is all the good things that are happening, not just in the sport but around it. And I think when you have the mentality as a coach of your job is to do a little bit more than just teach lacrosse, I think good things happen there.
Good things happen. I mean, most of the time when you're starting out, everybody's just about the sport. But what I learned is that you build a family unit. You get, you develop that trust, and then the sky's the limit as far as what you could achieve.
There's a cool picture that you had sent. Frank, can you pull up the first photo that we had? I think that's you and your wife there.
Yes.
On the back of your shirt, it says, clear eyes, full hearts, can't lose.
Yeah.
What does that mean to you?
Well,
why is it on your shirt?
In 2013, when I took the program over, I was looking for something that would kind of tie everything up that I was basically in the last. I'm in the last third of my career, and that was a pretty cool saying from this show Friday Night Lights and the movie Friday Night Lights, which made a big impact on me, being a football guy and small town, kind of that whole environment. But the thing that I liked about it, and I think as a mantra to our program, is that clear eyes means you're very focused. You're focused on, the objective. And then, to have that kind of team or that kind of championship kind of atmosphere, you gotta have the person's back next to you. You know what I'm saying? So like you can count on each other, and you play for the person next to you. You play for your teammates. You play for your friends. And it's full hearts mean you have them in your heart at all times. And if you have clear eyes and you're focused, then you put each other in your hearts and you play from that emotion, you can't really lose.
So it's kind of this is more than just the game you're talking about here.
Yeah, it's
you happen to win a state championship that year.
Yes.
But even if you didn't,
yes,
you feel as though with that approach with your team that you guys can't lose.
Well, the thing is, it's winning and losing don't define you as a program, as a team. If you're a transformational person, it's all about that process.
Sure.
You know what I'm saying? And for me, I've always been very, very close to my teams. I mean, my wife will laugh. It's just, there's never been anything, a kid or a team that I didn't like.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? But, over the years, you get close to certain groups of people. Wherever I've been, I've always had that kind of team. I've always built that kind of family atmosphere. It's just that at Mount Sinai, I had the opportunity to do it after my children had left, which really was, a driving force. I got very, very close to these kids, especially the group that I started off with earlier in 13. And, it's just been good. I mean, I've had a great run there. It started with the Long Island Yellow Jackets and Carol Rose, and, the kids following me into the Yellow Jacket program. And, you just can't travel, June, July, and spend all that time with each other and, the parents, and, you're in hotels with them and you're going out to dinner. And what happens is we became a real family,
Sure.
And it's just a whole different ball game when you're playing and you're coaching from that realm, because there's a tremendous amount of trust, and when there's trust, you can get after them and drive them, and you could push them.
Yep.
And what happens is they trust you, and they, the whole the thing in our town is trust the process.
Yeah.
Because if you just trust what we're doing, it's the end game is, look, we all want to win championships, but the reality is we want to get on, we want to get out, we want to get to college, we want to become successful women, business women. We want to compete in this world. And I always tell the girls that, there's men's lacrosse and there's women's lacrosse. But out in the business world and out in the real world, there's just business. You know what I'm saying? So, you have to be a strong woman.
Yeah.
And, and you have to go out there. I had daughters, and, my wife, I mean, she's a strong woman, and she raised strong women. And I just really believe that, in this time, you have to advocate for that,
I want to get a little bit more into that. I also want to get into, you talked about your process, which is great to have in place, but also I feel like there's a mentality that you've kind of put in place in your program. And I've heard you say it, I've heard other coaches say it, the idea of a wrestler's mentality. I want to talk about that. And Frank, can you pull up a picture actually, which is it's a gem that you sent us of you wrestling?
Well, that's actually...
Is that you there?
No, that's not me. That's one of my
back?
good friends. He wrestled for me at Sachem. He was county champion. His name was Sean O'Hara. He's actually one of the assistant coaches at Sachem East right now.
Oh, okay, cool.
Is that a superintendent?
His brother is the superintendent at Hop Hog High School.
Yeah.
Sean O'Hara.
Love that shot.
Sean
Good
O'Hara
piece.
that's another one of my wife's favorites. He was a Sachem wrestler.
Okay.
He was in the glory days here at Sachem. Wrestled for Jack Mahoney, was the head coach, and Sean was he was a heck of a wrestler. Him and I had a great relationship. We trained a lot together. We used to come out where I lived, and he used to run the hills. And him and a few of his friends, got into great shape going up and down the hill. She would make hot chocolate for them. I would follow him with the truck at like 8, 9 o'clock at night through the hills of Farmingville, and those were great memories. He was a great. He was a great kid, great family.
And that wrestler's mentality, is that something that it also is pretty physical? Because I feel like wrestlers, I think coaches demand probably the most or more than any other sport.
Well,
like
my
of
wrestling
you.
background is
Yeah.
probably single-handedly the reason for any success that I've had. It's just,
And why is that?
well, you have to be disciplined. It's like, not only do you have to train, and it's very, very, it's rough training. It's not for everybody. I mean, the world would be a lot better off right now if everybody wrestled.
Yeah.
It's it's a weight class sport. You have to maintain your nutrition. You've got to maintain your conditioning. It's no party life with a wrestler. You know what I'm saying? I mean, I wrestled in college. I never went on spring break. It's just one of those things. But I will tell you one thing. When you do battle every day in that arena, and it's a daily grind in wrestling, and you got to enjoy it. Otherwise, you won't last.
Sure.
But that mentality single-handedly propelled me through life and through the tough times that I had, and the wrestling coaches that I had. I mean, Paul Brodmerkel at Lindenhurst was he's a legend as far as I'm concerned. I mean, he was my high school coach. You always love your high school coach. I loved him he was like a real. He was young at the time. He was like a brother. My wrestling coach in college, Jim Davey, was a great guy. He took me under his wing. And him and his son-in-law Bob Stock, they taught me everything that I know.
Sure.
I give it all to them.
So we were actually talking before the show started about just kind of how things were, I guess, a little bit when you were coaching, and even when you were an athlete when you were younger, and how things are today. And it kind of brings us to our next segment, which we like to talk about as being bizarre versus normal, because there's a lot of topics and there's a lot of things that we discuss on the show that back in the day might have been bizarre, but today are normal, vice versa.
Yeah.
One thing we talked about was just anxiety in kids. Is that something that is bizarre today or a little bit more normal, and how does it compare to years past?
We were just saying that, if I had to paint with a broad brush, I would have to say that today's child, today's kid, today's player, they're not as emotionally strong as they were years ago. Okay, for whatever societal reasons and what's going on. The kids today they're not. They're not as mentally tough as they used to be. All right, and I think that's a given. And and it's not everybody, and I know it's a broad brush, but for the most part, there's just a lot going on. I mean, there's a lot of pressure on kids. There's pressure to succeed in school. There's pressure when it comes to their social life and and to their peers. There's pressure in athletics. There's pressure with their with their grades and test taking. It's just a whole different, and they're not handling it well. I mean, I recognized this about 4 years ago, and I originally had studied this guy, Craig Siegel, who was a mental toughness trainer. Got his name off the net. I did some work with him, brought in some techniques and things like that. And then I turned around, and this year we brought in a mindset coach. It was winning mindset. It's actually, his company was Wrestling Mindset. brought the guy in, and it's been pretty good, because he talks really cold, hard facts with the kids as far as what they're going through and how to handle it. And
Sure.
and a lot of it is everything that we've talked about. It's like, they talk about predator and prey mindset, where like the prey mindset, you're so scattered that you're worried about everything that's going on around you.
Yeah.
Where the predator mindset's kind of locked in and focused on
Right.
what you have to do, and controlling the controllables and
Yes.
all those things. So
Is that something you feel as though, or at least with your girls and your experience at Mount Sinai, that you need to constantly reinforce and reiterate, or is it like, hey, you bring your mindset coach in every once in a while and it seems to keep you on track?
Well, this is the first year I brought the mindset coach in, and I think he's paying dividends already. You know what I mean? Especially with our younger kids.
Yeah.
There's always been pressure of the program right now of, I think once you've had success, then you become everybody's bullseye. You know what I mean? And I think you have to embrace that.
Right.
And you have to learn how to get past that. And,
Yeah.
my job is to take the pressure off of them.
Yeah.
The reality is though, if you want success, if you want an A+ product, you have to put out an A+ effort.
Yeah.
And I think our process does that. And I think we've had talent. I think we have a nice year-round program. We build everything around the other sports, but we do a lot of things. We team build. We skill build, and we have a timeline. We do everything. I'm always adding to it or taking away. You gotta see what works for whichever group is going through. They're not. It's not just like a jigsaw puzzle. It's all different at times. So,
Yeah.
I mean, what I see right now is I see that I have, for every offensive or defensive play you put in, you got to really worry about what's going on above the shoulders too.
Sure.
And I think that's an important component.
Is that, yes, yeah, yep.
The question is, do you find yourself coaching differently today because of that, mindset compared to, let's say, 20, 30 years ago?
Well, it's not even close compared to when we were kids. I'm just going to talk more in terms of 5 years ago. 5 years ago, I can be a little bit more demanding and I can drive them a little harder. If I don't have their trust now, and we've been going over this, if they don't trust me, then I can't push.
How do you get your players to trust you?
Well, I think you got to spend time with them. I think they have to see that that you look at them more as a person and a lacrosse player. I think there's a lot of components with that. They see us on a personal level. They know my wife, and she hates when I raise my voice, so it's like a running joke. It's like that type of thing, and it's just that's the way it is. I mean, they have to see you as it's no different than a family. There's ups and downs, there's peaks, there's valleys. I mean, and having girls and living in an all-female house, you have to admit you're wrong. I mean, it's like, and that's the deal. And if you blow it, you blow it, and you tell them. And that's transparent. They have to see that you're human. You know what I mean? They're like, hey, look, if you make a mistake, you tell them you make a mistake.
Right.
Same way. It's like they're quick to point out things.
Sure.
But I think once they trust that that you're worried about their home life. I have a mass text base. I get out to them a lot. I mean, I reach out to them a lot. I'm retired, so we do a lot of things together, or at least I try.
Sure.
You know what I mean? I try to make it more than just lacrosse. So.
Yeah, no, that's great. I just want to move into our next segment here. So our next segment is called Reality Check. So in this segment, we want to talk about something that might be perceived out there as maybe one thing, but the reality, which I hope you can kind of shed some light on today, is maybe another. So the topic that we want to talk about tonight is leadership, something that you know very well, and I know you're very well read on it, and you have a lot of experience, working with it. But I guess the question for you is there such thing as a born leader, or can leaders be developed, or maybe do they kind of go both hand in hand? And what are your thoughts on that?
Well, again, it's they both kind of go hand in hand, and it depends.
Yeah.
Okay. I think years ago, we would go into a season, and you had kids that have been leaders in the program coming through, or the best players, and those were the kids that you picked, and lo and behold, if you're a lifelong learner, all the data is saying now that leadership has to be developed.
Yes.
You know what I mean? So, and especially in the world that we live in and what they're going through now, if you don't teach them how to handle those situations, they don't want to. A leader is the kind of person that's going to put themselves out there. They're going to hold people accountable. They're going to call people out when they're not doing the right thing. That is a difficult thing in this world. And I'm going to tell you, I mean, my experience with the girls, it's hard for them. I mean, some kids, they don't care, and those kids have that, that mentality that, they can shake off that they don't have to be the popular kid. That, it's just some of those kids, it depends. But lately, what I've been trying to do is I've been thinking outside the box. It goes along with the Dabo Sweeney with his leadership council, and what they're doing is they have, they bring a council together. I'm a big believer in senior leadership. I don't think you go anywhere unless you have a senior class that leads. They got to lead by example. They got to do all the right things. You need a strong senior class.
Yeah.
Like our championship years, senior classes, they were good.
Yep.
They were good. I mean, and in one particular class, the 17s, they were good their junior year and their senior year. Even though they weren't, quote unquote, captains, leadership is action. It's really not position.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? And you're going to always denote a couple of kids that spearhead the program and have the C on their chest. But the reality is, if you're building a kid in the 9th grade and you're building a couple of kids in the 10th grade and then in the 11th grade, leadership naturally carries over.
So the council you talked about is basically you're providing leadership positions to players in different classes.
Yes.
And so throughout the years they're developing, because they have experience dealing with some of those same issues that leaders deal with as seniors and juniors.
And what we're doing is we have worksheets.
Yep.
I mean, we're about 4 or 5 meetings into our leadership council this year, maybe 6. We do round table. We have this is a safe place, and whatever's said here stays here. It's everybody has a voice. Everybody has to be seen. Everybody has to be heard. We asked for essays. We built our leadership council around John Gordon's The Hard Hat. 21 Ways to Be a Great Teammate, and following the George Boiardi story.
Sure.
It's been working. I mean, it's always a work in progress, but it's something that as I've gotten older, I think it's opened up other doors, because what happens is those young ones, we just invited 2 freshmen into ours, and they seen you in a different vein.
Yeah.
It's like,
Wow, you guys are real. You deal
well,
with
it's like when I was teaching, elementary school, right, Trish? And you go shopping and they'd see you shopping. It's, oh my God, Mr. Bertolone, he shops in the same supermarket as we do. Yes, I buy food. Yes, I live here. But once they see you as human, and look, it's as easy as this. When they come into practice, just going, hey, how was your day?
Yeah.
A lot of tests today.
Yeah.
How's it going? Or you find out, if there's a boy in the mix, and it's, how are things going? You know what I'm saying? If there's,
couple thoughts. Obviously, you've had some real successful teams. Who were some of the, better leaders in the tenure at Mount Sinai?
Frank, do you mind pulling up? Maybe we have I think an image of. Yeah, this is a really cool shot. I think you got
to put my binoculars on. Hold on. Let me see what we got here.
Now, I don't know if this is one team or several teams.
Well, the team on the right is, if you look at the one in the middle, those are my 17s. And in the 17 class, I had some tremendous leaders. Emily Vangilio, who's at Penn State right now, Haley Dillon, who's at Stony Brook, Hannah Van Middelen, who's at Syracuse. They were glue kids. They held that, they did a great job. Raina Sabella was on their leadership council. I mean, those were kids that really, I was in the trenches with those kids a long time, because they played for me. A lot of those kids were in our Yellow Jacket program. And like Dylan and Sabella and Noneman, they played on my Yellow Jacket team. So I was with them and their parents for a long time.
All year round.
Yeah. So what happens is it's just different. It was like, Mama Bert. I mean, that's the way it was. I mean, so we had a different relationship. So I could drive those kids, but they were glue kids. They held things together. What
do these glue kids you talk about that are some of your top leaders that are just very memorable, what do they have in common? What are some characteristics about them as just kids?
They took care of things. There are things that go on. As much as you as a coach want to be aware of everything, there are certain things that just happen that you're not going to know. They're going to, and they take care of it,
Right.
A kid that maybe messes up, they make sure that the kid gets back on track, or
because they just feel as though that's part of their responsibility.
That's part of their responsibility
as a leader.
And they take care of, everything that, from practice to after practice. I mean, probably the greatest leadership group I had was 15 with Casey Mitchell, Sydney Parecka, Mary Ellen Karen. I mean, those kids were
They're
outstanding.
now seniors in
They're
college.
seniors in college.
Right.
Yeah, that was the best. Sid is a captain down in Florida. Mary Ellen's a captain at Lehigh.
Sure.
I mean, they're all people. Those guys were just, they just took care of business. And a lot of times, they just take care of everything before it gets to you.
Sure.
You know what I'm saying? And some of those kids were coaches' kids,
Yeah.
so they understood how things work. So I've always felt now you got to take all of those things that they knew and you bottle it up and you kind of hand it to other people. It's
Right.
like, kids struggling in practice, who's going to go up and pick them up? You know what I'm
Right.
saying? Or, kid needs a ride and, what's happening to Sally? Maybe she's, her parents are down on her, or this one's failing a class or not doing well. It's like, there's so many dynamics that those kids have to be aware of because that leads to a more harmonious team.
Right.
So, 13 when I started, it was Caroline Fitzgerald, Florida. I mean, Danielle Della Rocca, Jacksonville. I mean, they were just good, tough kids, but they took care of the younger kids too. I mean, which I think is the biggest thing since I took over. It's like, it's not the older kids, the younger kids. It's like, you got somebody that takes care of business, somebody that's a mother confessor. There's always, they have roles that has, we sit and we talk about it. Well, who's going to pick up the young kids? Who's going to set the tone if the practice isn't going? Who's going to be a let's go girls type, so this, you got to teach it because otherwise if you don't teach it, it's like you're rolling the dice.
Right.
And I think that's what we did in years past. I think when you rolled the dice and say, oh, these guys can lead, it's like, I think you have to teach it. I think you got to teach scenarios.
Yeah, similar to, I'm sure, how you establish positions for players. You're giving girls an opportunity to get better at specific leadership roles.
Yes.
You're not just saying, hey, you got to be the hype girl today and you got to be the mama bear tomorrow.
Yeah.
And and I think that's good for someone to know what their role is and how to develop in that role.
I think roles are very important.
Years,
And I just don't, and I also don't think that kids, for the most part, you don't have to be the best player to be an effective leader. Again, leadership is action, it's not position. I think on the field, that leadership that emanates on the field and is, you need some strong characters out there that, when things are going wrong, who's going to rally the troops and, especially, it's like girls lacrosse is not like men's lacrosse with multiple timeouts or like basketball, you get 2 timeouts in a high school game and a lot of time it's a huge field, you get into one of these big games and the noise is deafening and they can't hear you. And it's like, I always tell them, all you got in those moments is each other, and that's, it's like anything else. That's where the training comes in. Like, we don't win that game or we don't win a big game that day. We win that big game in August, in July, on a field that lacks for the cure when we went to the playoffs in 90-degree heat. They're just mentally tough, and we've had a lot of those games, those wrestler mentality type games. We've had a lot of tough kids respond in big moments.
Sure. So I just want to move into our last segment. This is the word here. Frank, do you mind pulling up the picture? I just want to touch on a little bit. That was a shot from your three. I thought that was a cool shot from the three-peat. That was the 2017
That was
team.
Ultimate Athlete magazine. Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah.
And they do some great stuff.
Yeah,
and then the next one, is that your daughter there?
That's my daughter Courtney. Yeah.
So you have 2 daughters. Talk
Two
about
daughters.
What are they up to? How are they doing? And,
2 great kids. The older one, she played softball at Southern Connecticut. She's a teacher in the Hamden School District right now. She coaches field hockey and softball right now. And she was a really good girl.
Yeah.
I mean, she was a glue kid coming through high school. You know what I'm saying? She wasn't the, field hockey. She wasn't the most talented, but she was a kid that dug in. She was a great teammate. She worked the locker room. She was one of those kids with the quotes up on the bulletin board type. And then she was a heck of a softball pitcher. So.
Is she enjoying her role as teacher coach?
Yeah,
as
she
well
loves
right
it. She loves it. She's a heck of a teacher. Yeah. And then the young one, she was a All-American field hockey player and lacrosse player. She was tough. She actually went on to Robert Morris to try to play both.
Wow.
And then she transferred back to Stony Brook and she finished up there. She played lacrosse there just before the Spallina years.
Gotcha.
Yeah. So.
And she's coaching now, right?
She's coaching at Binghamton. Yeah.
Cool.
3rd stop. Started off at. She went from Pace to Iona. She got a master's at Iona, and now she's at Binghamton.
Doing the college coach thing.
Yeah. She's a good girl. Both of them. Yeah.
Talk about your wife's impact on you and your successes in your program. I know she's got a huge role in what you guys do and why you're successful.
Huge role. Well, first of all, I mean, it's like I would never have been able to do what I've done without her support.
Yeah.
It's just, because the deal is, I think the success that we've had is because you're able to put more time in. You know what I mean? So, wherever I've been, she's always been a tremendous support person.
Yeah.
And and I don't really look at her as a support person. It's like I look at her as a, she's my partner. She's the real head coach type thing.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, ever since I started. I mean, she was not a big fan of wrestling. I took her to the West Point, the old West Point Cup in the early '80s. And then she fell in love with wrestling, and those guys that we talked about. I mean, those were her boys. O'Hara was her guy. You know what I mean? So she always did the right thing.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, championship hot chocolate was always made at our house. Cookies, cakes.
How do you do the pasta parties at Mount Sinai?
The pasta parties are pretty good. My parents run them. She actually was started the first field hockey booster club at Sachem. Okay, in the day when girls were having just little pizza parties in the cafeteria, like she wanted no part of that. So she was like, look, if the boys are going to be going to Mama Lombardi's, the girls are going to get. So she started the field hockey booster club, then she ran the lacrosse booster club, and that's been her. I mean, she's been just a tremendous women's advocate, doing all those things that that are coming to light now. And she was a pioneer.
What excites you guys about this year coming up? You could talk a little about your team or just lacrosse in general on Long Island. What's happening?
Well, lacrosse in general is on the boom. The collegiate game is outstanding. The fan base, the professional leagues. In my domain, coaching, with the Yellow Jackets with Carol, I think we're going. I've been with her like for 15 years. It's going strong. I mean, club lacrosse is. I mean, there's a lot of good things going on in the game of lacrosse. More opportunities now than when my children came through.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? I just think it's booming. I think the competitive nature of lacrosse on Long Island is out in the forefront. I mean,
Mm-hmm.
when I started, there was a couple of teams that got hype. Now it's like I look at the kids. I mean, it's nice to get the 5 ranking in the country. I mean, do I think we're a 5 rank? I mean, you don't know. It's about where you finish at the end. But for where our program started and where our program is, that's a tribute to your program and all the people that made those things happen, that you're recognized by U.S. Lacrosse. I think that's
it's just you built a nice respect.
Yeah, and I just think that's the important thing. Not like you have to live up to the 5. Yeah, whatever's going to happen is going to. But Little Mount Sinai.
Exactly.
A
What's
small,
the student body there?
Whatever it is. I mean,
They graduate what? Less than 200?
less than 200. You know what I mean? It's like Little Mount Sinai, and that little diameter of a town is mentioned in the same vein as the Bishop Iretons, the McDonoughs, the
Yeah,
Notre
but
Dame Preps. I mean, it's
the
like
boys and girls program
yeah.
this year in Mount Sinai can play with any team in the country. I would put the boys team or the girls team on a field. I don't care who the team is, and say, I give them a shot.
I mean, we've run with everybody. You know what I'm saying? I just think there are a lot of tremendous teams on Long Island. I mean, Eastport's got a tremendous team. West Babylon's got a tremendous team. Carroll at Northport's got a tremendous team. I'm really partial to Class C. I mean, Ryan's got a really good team, and Mary's got a really good team. But it wasn't always like that. It was like it was a 1 or a 2 team race in the
Mattatuck, right? Didn't they play you tough?
He always has a good team. I mean, but the thing is, it's like we've developed lacrosse.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? And everybody's picking up the ball and run with it.
Yeah.
So at the end of the day, when a Carol Rose retires, I mean, she started it all.
Yep.
I mean, it's like
Queen Bee.
I mean, you got to give her due. I mean, she started the whole thing. I mean, I would never be involved if it wasn't for Carol. I mean, I was a football guy. You know what I mean? It's just but she pulled me in, and it's become very. We're very, very good friends.
Is she one of your mentors in the game?
She taught me the girls' game. Her and Allison Pfeffer and John Pfeffer from Bayshore. I spent time with them. But Carol, I mean, I'm a football coach. I mean, what do football coaches do? You look, you learn.
Yeah, film.
I mean, men's lacrosse guy. I mean, we all have our own little way of doing things. But the girls' game, if it wasn't for Carol, I wouldn't be here. And I give her all the credit. Her and my wife, the 2 most important things that ever happened to me. So
Awesome. Well, this was an awesome show, Al. I really appreciate your time, man.
I love being here, man.
Yeah,
you know,
we'll
how
definitely
I feel
we'll
about
have you back
guys.
on.
Whenever you want. Talk
Awesome.
about life. It's again, like I told you, it's nice to win championships, but it's better to have relationships.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? And it's like, no matter who's standing at the end of the year, I mean, we all want to win, but
Sure.
the reality is we're all friends and we have great rivalries, and and lacrosse is on the boom.
Yeah, and we're excited to capture and cover some of the rivalries. We'll be at your first game,
Hurricane Al.
Hurricane Al, baby, against West Hampton. We got West Hampton. We also have, I almost forgot, we have a giveaway
Oh
tonight.
yeah, we got to do the
So,
question.
I'm not sure
Trivia.
what type of sticks your girls use, but this is an epic purpose stick, I think.
I like the track pocket, yeah.
Yeah, little track pot. And then have you heard of these fire thread
Yes.
shooting strings?
Yes.
So we have, we got this stick right here. Hopefully everyone can see it. And in order to try to win this stick, we have a trivia question that you need to answer.
Would you like me to ask that trivia question?
Yeah, ask the trivia question. They can either DM us on Instagram or put it in, ideally you want to put it in the comment section right there if you're on Facebook. So
All right,
Coach
so
Wink's asking the question.
Here we go, guys.
to
This is
win
the
the stick.
trivia question. I'm only gonna give one hint though. So trivia question. This stick was strung by String It Up, I believe.
String It Up in Huntington?
Yep. The epic purpose ladder pocket with the dragonfly shaft. When Al and I played, there were two sticks. There wasn't
sticks.
750,000.
I know, it's light. I know, it's crazy.
Now, the answer of this question can be found in the Long Island Lacrosse Journal.
Okay.
So if you have the Long Island Lacrosse Journal, open up your app. If you don't have it, get it now on your app phone. It comes in every app store in America. There's two parts to this question, okay? I believe Al will know the answers, but he will not give the answer.
I will not reveal.
Part one is name the trophy given to the best team in both boys and girls high school lacrosse in New York City, Nassau, and Suffolk County. Part two is what is the great lacrosse organization that sponsors this trophy? So every year there's a trophy given to the best team in New York City, Nassau County, and Suffolk County. So 3 trophies, 3 on the boys' side, 3 on the girls' side.
Perfect.
And then what organization sponsors that trophy?
All right, so you got to comment right away. DM us. We're going to be picking a winner and posting it tonight by 10 p.m. Coach Al's not going to give it away.
And I bet
know he
you,
wants
I
to.
bet you Al has won it. Has
And
won
Al-
this trophy.
Yes, he has.
Yeah, I'll put the question in the comments section. Thank you.
And then since we didn't roll the intro, Frank, that's on me. Do you mind rolling the intro towards the end of the show? Could we?
Roll it as like an outro.
Yeah, we'll do an outro.
an outro.
Awesome. Al, thanks a lot, man.
Thanks
I
for
appreciate you
having
coming
me,
on.
man. Appreciate
Yes,
it.
Thank you. So just leave the logo there.